We got the honor.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. We got the honor
Big honor.
of having the seat. So, as Paul was saying, all the things I do. Fortunately, I have the best COO and business partner and life partner there is, because so Michelle said go this way.
No, yeah.
Rebecca said go that way.
No.
So I'm not going to be on camera all the time. You're going to hear me. Really, this presentation is the slides, and so it's not me. And one of the things Paul talked about yesterday is I've spent a little time with Dr. Wallach, right? When we put this presentation together, it really was talking about his mission for nutrition. So it isn't about me at all. It is about me and my time with my father. Remember how many? I'm going to date myself a little bit. How many people remember the Michael Moore documentary Roger and Me?
Yeah.
Oh, remember that?
No.
No, it wasn't that great of a documentary, but it was about Roger, I forget his last name, Roger. He was then the CEO of Chrysler, I think, or Dodge, one of those. And basically, it was Michael. It's what made Michael Moore the filmmaker, the documentary that actually broke his career open. And so, as a filmmaker, that documentary, and so this is kind of like that, but me and my father. So that's good. So we're going to talk about this. So I was told by Paul this morning I should spend a minute per slide. Michelle, I believe that this presentation is 73 slides long. In Colorado, I spent 2.5 hours giving this presentation. We do it in about 15 to 20 minutes. We got to keep on schedule because we're about an hour behind already. But we do like to have fun, right? Right. So what's Roger? It was Roger Smith. You're right. Thank you. So okay. So we're going to get started. What this slide is a bunch of visionaries, and Paul brought up Steve Jobs. I think he's one of these slides may not be in this group, but so the point of this slide is, it wasn't until I was an adult and actually studied Steve Jobs before I realized that I had actually grown up with somebody that had such ideas that actually has changed the world that we live in and as we know it, and that's my father. And so these people, my father's picture could be among these people. And there he is. So this is an iconic picture. This is a picture of my father with a rhesus monkey at the Europe's Primate Center, where he discovered the first case of naturally occurring cystic fibrosis in a non-human. Up until that moment in time, everybody that knew anything about cystic fibrosis believed it to be a human disease. He actually, and we have put the original letters and things up on the walls of Youngevity. How many people have taken a tour of Youngevity? If you haven't, the building in Chula Vista, those of you that have, you've seen these. You may not have realized what they were, but they're up on the walls. And those of you that haven't been there, be sure to take the opportunity to come check all that stuff out someday. But the letters were of him or by him actually communicating back then. There was no email or text messaging, so it all had to be by letter, right, or telephone calls. But he was communicating his research to the experts of cystic fibrosis, and they would say, well, that's, it's an interesting theory or whatever, but no, it's only in humans. And he would provide all the pathology slides and things. ultimately, he went to those experts, to a panel of experts, and said, I have a 6-month-old infant that died. Here are the pathology slides. I believe it to be cystic fibrosis. And they all said, absolutely, that's cystic fibrosis. And he said, but it was a monkey. Whoa.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that changed his, Michelle's moving.
Sorry. It's hard for me to show state of the computer. I'm so sorry.
So obviously he's a rebel with a cause, and it was that discovery that actually changed the trajectory of his career. You guys all know the story. His first degree was in, he actually got 2 degrees initially together. One was in agriculture, which we'll get into that in a little bit. One was veterinary medicine. And so he was trained at one of the best medical schools in the country to this day, and that's the University of Missouri. All the professors that he had in veterinary school are the same professors that teach medical school or taught medical school in terms of things like biology and chemistry and biology and things. So there are only 23 or 28 students, by the way, in his veterinary school, in his veterinary class. Super hard to get into. If you have anybody looking to get into veterinary school today, it's still incredibly difficult to get into. Our 17-year-old is following in his footsteps and wants to be a veterinarian. Okay, so that discovery changed the trajectory of his career and focused him back on human nutrition or human health. And so with his background, he knew it all was focused on nutrition or originated in nutrition. Step back. It was just like, no, one quick second. He went public with the fact that his discovery, once confirmed, cystic fibrosis actually occurring case. It was not induced, it just happened. And he came to the conclusion that it was nutritional deficiencies that led to that. They, by the way, once it was confirmed it was cystic fibrosis in a monkey, it made worldwide news, international news. We had some of the news articles from the 70s, late 70s up on the walls. It's in some of this presentation. It's in the documentary, the Doc, as we call it, The Audacity of Health. And so this was numerous newspaper articles worldwide of this discovery. He then went one step further and openly said it was nutritionally induced, not genetic. Fired him on the spot. So that changed the trajectory of his career. Okay. We'll say the two quotes to keep it going. You've heard my father talk about his lectures or on his audios that he grew up on a farm. Definitely farm boy from Missouri.
And Angelica, sweetheart, can I switch spots with you? Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. I'm just too far. You want to see? No. Angelica.
Okay. How many people remember Marlon Perkins?
Yeah.
The crocodile before the crocodile. Yeah. Animal television shows. So Michelle's younger than I am, but we've talked about this before. When we were kids growing up, there were no DVRs or no DVD players. And so when the street lights would go out, we would go inside, especially on Sunday evening, and we would watch Mutual and Oz Wild Kingdom, hosted by Marlon Perkins, and then the Disney movie of the week, right? And if you missed it, you missed it. There was no replays, no recordings. So everybody was like, oh, what's on the but we didn't even have a lot. So it was the street lights and you know, as it got dark. Anyway, so Marlon Perkins helped my father get into veterinary school. He was a mentor of my father's. And so Marlon Perkins helped my father move his family before I was born to South Africa to help save the white rhino and the African elephant. So it's my father, my mother, who was pregnant with me at the time, 2 sisters, tranquilized rhino. Once my father got back, which it was Marlon Perkins that telegrammed him because there's no email and the text messages, he telegrammed my father and asked him to come back with why I was actually born in St. Louis. I probably would have been born in South Africa. My middle sister on that picture was born in South Africa. And so it was Marlon Perkins that to a degree caused me to be born in. So when my father got back, he had all these great pictures that he had taken in Africa of his adventures in working with the rhinos and the elephants and all the wildlife. And it was like being on safari. Again, there's no Google at the time, there's no computers, no personal computers, no internet. And so my father would invite the people from the neighborhood to come just see his slides. And they would, they did, just like this. It was a living room. I remember when I was probably I was 6. I remember those meetings in Chicago, Illinois. My father was then the assistant zoo director of the Chicago Zoo Systems, which was the Brookfield Zoo, the Lincoln Park Zoo, and the Shed Aquarium. And he would have a projector, slide projector. I still have some of those slides in my office in Wholistic. But remember the sound those made, those carousels. I mean, those of us old enough, it was good job, like, you would hear the advancing slide carousel, right? I mean, I remember that so vividly today. So he would show people, he'd invite people and they'd come just to see the slides of you know, his pictures of Africa, because it was the next best thing to either going to the zoo or going on safari. And those that it wasn't convenient, obviously, or doable. He would do that. Okay, so we have this picture up on the wall in Chula Vista as well. It was not because when people are like, that's Dr. Wallach right here. But that's not the wall.
Another piece to witness protection.
I remember those platform rim glasses so vividly too, with my father's. But this is Marlon Perkins, and it's expressed. So the art on the wall explains this to a degree. This is when he talks about the grant, $7.5 million research grant to study the effects of pollution. This is part of that. And so Marlon Perkins was a movie star, he was a television star at the time, but he had them take the picture from over his shoulder, and it says in the article, Marlon Perkins, Dr. Wallach. And it, talks about him being head of pathology, my father, but he was the assistant zoo director. Excuse me, this is in St. Louis. So he became the assistant zoo director of Chicago from here. So Marlon Perkins, his image was so owned by Youth of Omaha that when they came to do the articles, let's take a picture from behind me, because he was concerned of having his picture taken because he needed approval at that point from Mutual of Omaha, because they owned his image so much, because that television show was so popular and sponsored by them. That really was the beginning of my father's book. His expensive book, Diseases of Exotic Animals, which became a veterinary textbook, right? So how many people have a copy of this? Anybody?
Oh, no.
So if you search this book, if you were to look it up on Google or Amazon, not a fan of Amazon, but if you look it up as a used book, you might do today. It goes between $800 on the low end and $25,000 on the high end. So it's not a super popular book to have because of cost, but the information to this day is recommended by the Smithsonian Institute for zoos, zoological gardens, professional aquariums, like SeaWorld, and so forth, because it is so extensive, and it became like the benchmark of, it's quoted by research papers to this day, to brand new ones quote this book as a resource. And so William Bover, became the first full-time zoo vet of the St. Louis Zoo. My father trained him to be the full-time zoo vet, and he retired from his career of 40 years at the St. Louis Zoo. And so back then there weren't zoo vets.
Wow.
It was not a position, it didn't exist. So pretty interesting. But my father wanted to create that book because there were no computers, there was no internet, there was no Google. He wanted to create a book as an information clearinghouse of how to handle, how to treat, how to diseases of exotic animals for veterinarians. Because up to that point, if the zoo needed a veterinarian, they would get a horse vet to come treat a tiger. So that was the idea of that book. So again, this is my father. Looks quite a bit different than the other picture, right? That's what it felt like. It's the same. But this is Dr. Zeus. If I ran the zoo, this was an article when he took the job as the zoo director of the Jacksonville Zoo. That's us 3 kids. I like this picture because if you look closely, you'll see lion cubs. That's at the Brookfield Zoo. We have these animals in our backyard in Chicago often, and to me, it was just normal, right? Growing up in a zoo, and my father too, really, he was just normal. My father and us 3 kids again. In this picture, if you look closely at the kids, pictures of us over, none of us care about the lions because it was just normal for us. We were more interested in the grass, honestly. So, it's my father again holding a tranquilized monkey. This is a big story. Okay, then I'll get into this. I think this was in Memphis when I was the zoo director of the Memphis Zoo, and a colony of monkeys escaped. And my father had written a book that he has not published called The Zoo Houdinis. There are always animals that would escape in the zoos that he would recapture them without harming them. And today you hear about big cats getting out of whatever zoos or whatever, and they kill them. My father would not do that. He didn't kill any animals unless absolutely had to. And so trying to figure out how to get these monkeys back into the zoo, he finally determined that he could feed them and tranquilize them into food and just pick them up. And so this is actually a newspaper article talking about that.
What it is. There you go.
So we talked about this. This is actually a published paper by my father, talking about the cystic fibrosis discovery that he made, and what and what his determination was of what led to the naturally occurring cystic fibrosis. And you guys have all heard the term epigenetics at this point.
Yes.
The term existed, but nobody really knew of it back then. And so he has been, my father's been credited as the grandfather of epigenetics, because that's what that hypothesis and theory was. So he, like I said, he took it worldwide. He went on a campaign to get that information out, even after they fired him. So he talks about Geraldo being in our neighborhood, not excuse me, in our house for this interview. I remember Hugh Downs being in our house. I didn't see Geraldo as far as I remember I was a little kid. And so to me, this was all interesting because these are big television cameras, and 2020 was a hit show at that time, new show, just like brand new kind of on, breaking onto the scene. So this is a big story. That is a screenshot out of the video of the story on 2020.
There we go. You should skip the quotes.
Yeah, quotes, because we don't have time.
No.
So I'll happily come do a 2-hour presentation. All on that, but we're gonna breeze through. Okay, so in my father's research, in writing that book, 1,200 pages, diseases of exotic animals, all his research, and you guys, I mean, you're in the home of Jonathan Emord, Cheryl Morley. One of the things that Jonathan Emord, who is an expert in the field of obviously constitutional law and things like the First Amendment and so forth, but in terms of regulatory stuff, in terms of the FDA and the FTC, all of that as well. one of the things that he taught me is really the huge difference between, between a scientist that does like reading research, is well versed in books, read a lot, maybe has done, has a lot of degrees, a lot of education. My father's done that, but there's a whole different level of experts, and that is people that have done it, not read it in a book, not seen it in a video or whatever, but experts that have actually done the research themselves and come to the conclusions themselves. And my father is that type of person, that type of researcher. He's a person that's done all of that research and has that education. And he came to the conclusion through the research of writing that 1,200-page book that we need 90 essential nutrients. And with his research, one of the things I didn't talk about in the slide, and we're not going to get back to it in terms of the slide, but that slide of Marlon is the other person who's super important, with William Wallach. You guys know that name? Some of you. So William Wallach was my father's oils professor, and he was like the Albert Einstein of soil and soil research. He was the first person to really understand and teach the hypothesis, the theory, that just because you have two oranges doesn't mean they have the same nutritional value. Can you imagine that as being a groundbreaking theory? Today, we all know that it's common sense that what is in our fruits and vegetables and foods has to come from the soil, right? And so it has to be there for the fruits and vegetables to actually contain those nutrients. Dr. Albrecht was the fellow that came up with that concept, that idea, and taught it and proved it to be true. He was my father's soils professor. To this day, the soil scale of fertility is called the Albrecht scale worldwide. But I was that guy. And so my father had the benefit of having mentors like Herman Perkins and William Albrecht and Dr. Gerhard Strauser and others.
Perkins for all in the labs with the birds.
No, there's two pictures. One with Marlon Perkins, one with William Albrecht. Both of them is
the stage, the slide.
it is.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah. I really like this
Sorry.
picture. I asked that to be sure this picture was in this presentation. As vividly as I remember my father giving those presentations, I guess, with slide projectors, as vividly as I remember the sound of that slide projector advancing, I remember this lecture and this picture. It's as iconic to me as the picture of my father holding the rhesus monkey with the stethoscope, because my father has spent 30 years plus. 30 years plus. Michelle and I have been married 32 years. So my father was doing these lectures on health and nutrition before we were married. So over 30 years. And those who know my father well know that lectured 350 days, 60 days, 30 years educating people. Different plane, different hotel, different city, different location, 2 hours a day on the radio, all night giving lectures. This is, how I will forever remember my father.
Wow. And this is how I'll remember it.
Paul was talking about the tape, the cassette tape, or Carol, both of them were, I think, yesterday. And the cassette tapes, Dead Doctor Don't Lie was actually by accident. And if you want proof that God works in mysterious ways, or that you can go from 0 to 150 miles an hour in life, that tape is proof of that. Because my father was giving these lectures, and somebody happened to record him on a video camera. Remember the big VHS video cameras?
The video first.
It's a videotape, and it was not professional. It was somebody recording his lecture because they found it really, really interesting, as a lot of people really have. The video quality was not good. This is not an audio that he went into a recording studio and said, oh, let's record this, let's edit it, let's polish it, let's, cut and snip this piece and add that. It's not that at all. It was one live lecture, videotape, video quality for that person, started adding it to just putting it on a cassette tapes and handing it out. Duplication, right? Duplicating the ability to get that message out. That message went from just my father as one person giving his lecture to it being recorded on an audio tape, to keep copying it and handing it out just organically, just because they were looking to spread that information and get that information out. It's been my father's mission for nutrition. And so that was recorded in 1993. By the end of 1995, it had gone worldwide, duplicated or translated into numerous languages. Many companies were using his information, saying, "Oh, he's talking about our products," but it wasn't. But they did that. Yeah. Ultimately went to a lot of those companies and said, "Look, you can't add anything to this lecture. You can't say I'm talking mega products because it's not true. Right. But if you want to get the information out, knock yourself out. Fantastic, I'm all for it. Get the information out." And so it went, atomic, holistic, whatever you want to call it, worldwide. And by the end of 1995, it was a phenomenon. There's somebody, Paul Andrews, who's involved with longevity today. He was the creator of the Whole Life Expos. Yeah. They were health trade shows around the world. And he says to this day, he's never seen anything like that. It's just like crazy. If you try to create a corporate audio or video that was 2 hours plus and hold people's attention to where they found it interesting, it's impossible. It can't happen. Yet people would sit through that lecture for 30 plus years, for 2+ hours, listening to every word he said. And so obviously audio cassette tapes have come and gone. My father, you still see the outline of that image, gave that lecture for 30+ years on overhead transparencies. They don't even make them anymore.
Dad talked about, disease is more prevalent now than ever. And you cannot go to a doctor and get an answer as to why that is. So I think your dad, gave eye-opening information that you can get from your general practitioner.
Well, here's the crazy thing is in this lecture, and he was so criticized by critics in this lecture, as it went viral, it just made some areas of health and nutrition and people involved in them insane. And so that's really one of the reasons we put up all those articles on the walls is they're like, there's look, this guy is saying salt your food to taste. That's, he's killing people. Use butter instead of vegetable oils. He's killing people. You should use lard and vegetable oils. The margarine is better. He did better. He's like, I don't know why people are saying these things. The food lobby, I don't know, we're all naive. But especially back then, that stuff. And so my father's like, well, I know that's not true. I've done research. I know those things are bad for people. I know they're killing people. Margarine, lard, vegetable oils, eliminating the chicken skin from chicken, fried foods are bad.
Cholesterol industry, it's not doctors, it's pharmaceuticals.
Well,
it's that the
cholesterol myth is one of the biggest, dogmas of health is that cholesterol is bad for you. No, it's not.
Right.
It's not. Right.
Right.
High cholesterol must mean you have a problem. No, your body actually uses cholesterol like a bandage. And cholesterol also is good in terms of hormones, and your brain is, I think my father says like 98% cholesterol. And so as the food industry, as the medical profession said, don't consume butter, don't consume eggs, it actually was killing you. Yeah. So malnutrition, in essence. They sold more drugs. But so epigenetics study of the impact that environmental factors have on our lives. So epigenetics, in layman's terms, is environmental factors that affect a genetic outcome. So pollution is a negative environmental factor that harms longevity, harms health, harms reproductive health, for example. Those sorts of things. So that's one example. Another example is in animals, temperature affects the gender outcome, the offspring outcome of turtles and alligators. You can actually affect sex of the offspring by affecting the temperature. So very few animals are that way. They are. That's a genetic environment factor that affects the outcome. Okay, so this is Jonathan E. Ward right here. Yeah. If we like breathing and we like living, we should all love God.
Tell everybody why it's to longevity. Why it's important to us, period, that Jonathan becomes senator.
Absolutely. So this will take more than a minute.
That's okay. I'll be back.
So absolutely.
This seems to be duplicated, that's.
Absolutely. And so, you know, Paul talked about, well, Jonathan E. Ward kind of came into our life around the audio tape. Yes and no. I'll give you a little more information as to how Jonathan E. Ward came into our life. When we were a startup company in 1998, we almost immediately were sued by Richard Branson of Virgin Enterprises. And he was, you know, a billionaire at the time and attacked us. His New York attorneys actually attacked us because my father had a trademark called Virgin Earth. That was it. And so he tried to put us out of business. And he could not win the trademark case, in my opinion. And so he attacked things my father was saying in his lectures. Somebody that to this day is a very good friend of ourselves, our business, has been a good friend of mine for 40 years in the nutrition space, that Steve, kind of, you know, hearing what's going on, you need to get a hold of this guy. We're in Southern California, Jonathan's here. And so he made the introduction. And Jonathan immediately, not only took my call, spent a lot of time listening, understanding, and chuckling on the other end of the phone. I haven't met him yet. He said, I know it. And so he handled it. That's all I can say. So my father, Jonathan, and we've become great friends, obviously. He's been a great friend of longevity. So why should Jonathan E. Ward, in my opinion, be senator?
Everybody's opinion.
There's a lot of reasons, but the things that you guys have heard about Dr. Wallach and longevity filing the health claim petitions, right?
Yeah.
With the FDA, no other direct selling network marketing company to this day has done what longevity and my father have done in filing these health claim petitions with the FDA. Why did we do that? Because we saw the benefit of getting this information out to people. One of the things that to this day is still a struggle and a fight, and Jonathan E. Ward told us back then it would be forever, is when you pick up a nutritional product label, it's rare for it to say anything about a disease, because in the United States, it would be illegal typically for that to be in association with the sale of a dietary supplement. So things like essential fatty acids, EPA and DHA reduce the risk of stroke, sudden death, heart attack, heart disease, things like that would be illegal, but for Jonathan E. Ward and my father getting that health claim through the FDA. Interestingly enough, the White House at the time, the OMB, the Office of Management Budget that maintains the budget, sent a letter to the FDA supporting our health claim petition in order to save lives. It also saves a ton of money by averting health heart disease, right? And heart disease issues. So pretty interesting. And we completely agree, obviously. Another one was selenium may produce an anti-carcinogenic effect in the body and may reduce the risk of certain cancers. Couldn't say that before. Air, can't say it now.
We can.
We can. And say cures cancer, or treats cancer, only President, you should say that. I'm not slated, but, yes, but here's the thing, every company can put that information on their labels and we share it. We don't get to trademark that information, copyright that information. It's not ours, it's not protected by us. It is open source, open domain. It has been my father's mission for nutrition the whole time. So that's why he's like, spend the money, we'll fight the fight. We'll pay the attorneys and the legal team to get this information. If you're going to file a health claim petition with the FDA for any of us, you need a skilled, knowledgeable attorney that is committed and tenacious to fight through that system, because the system is designed to not allow that information. It is absolutely true. One of the first time I met Jonathan, one of the most eye-opening experiences in the dietary supplement space I've ever had. There was an argument on behalf of another client, not even us, in Washington, D.C., that Jonathan was arguing on appeal. Jonathan, and it had to do with coenzyme Q10 and reducing the risk of BHP. And the typical pharmaceutical situation is they would prescribe statins, one of the pharmaceutical drugs for it. And coenzyme Q10 has been shown to benefit this, especially in conjunction. If you're going to get prescriptions, then you really need to up your coenzyme Q10 for sure. And so Jonathan was arguing on appeal, Second Circuit Court of Appeals here in DC. And I wanted to sit in on this oral argument. I wanted to see this happening. We had gotten involved in the health claim petition process. We then brought our 10-year-old, I think, at the time, son, Jonathan Wallach, with us. He's now 30, 20 years ago. I had gotten to know Jonathan over the telephone, by email by that point. And so came here, wound up sitting in on the court argument. And those of you, the gentleman's name is Dr. Whitaker. Yeah, Dr. Whitaker with Wellness, and the great advocate of health, of dietary supplements and benefits of dietary supplements as well. I was involved in the health claim petition process in certain instances with us. And so it was his case. And so anyway, John Roberts was the new judge on the panel. And so I remember that vividly. A few months later, he became the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. So it was a pretty interesting sequence of events, right? So anyway, so watching that whole thing transpire was interesting. But the point of my story is that
No, but it's super important because we've lost two senators.
we all hear that the FDA really isn't, they're certainly not an advocate of dietary supplements. So, there's the Hippocratic oath that my father believes in, that every doctor is supposed to believe, which is first do no harm, and it goes on from there, but do no harm. And as Dr. Glidden likes to, and drugs don't cure anything. And yet, nutritional supplements, nutrition is your first line of defense to longevity and good health, or in support of those things. So, anyway, so the administrators of the FDA sat behind me and Michelle and my 10-year-old son Jonathan. They didn't know who we were at the time, and but they were not nice, and they were saying very side comments. Jonathan was there arguing. It became evident to me that there was an inherent bias against the dietary supplement space. And I have heard it, I've grown up around it, I've lived it, but when you experience it firsthand, you're like, okay, it's real.
So we have a question on Zoom. Why is it the compliance team won't let us say those things, Steve?
They will let you say those things if you say them correctly.
That's right.
So what you can't say is, making just generalized comments. You can't paraphrase, you can't shorten the
It is
statement.
exactly.
This is regulatory compliance in terms of FDA, FTC, alphabet agency. They live by their rule book, the code of civil Code of Federal Regulations, CFR 21, or whatever it is. It's like 3,000 pages now of regulations. And so the simplest thing to explain in terms of compliance is don't post anything about dietary supplements and diseases. Just stay away from it. What is fair game and what the FDA says is our space in terms of regulations is structure function planning. Calcium supports healthy bones, things like that. EFAs support a healthy cardiovascular system, things like that. The minute you start talking diseases by inference or name, it gets into you better have a better education than just saying what you want to say. That's fine. So why can Jonathan be senator? Okay, so this is all great background information. So what it is for me is through that whole process, Jonathan had us submit this information. Anytime the FDA would drag their feet. For 3 years, they kept asking for extensions when we filed a health plan petition on the benefits of lycopene and reducing the risk of certain cancers. And they would delay. And it became national news. There's news articles, the FDA delaying this claim, authorizing this claim or making a decision. And so, and that, like the LA Times, Boston Globe, front page news and front page article that the FDA would delay. And Jonathan and I had conversations. Can we say no more delays? He said, well, you can, but they'll deny it. They'll just deny the claim then. So you're sure of that. So in that process, he said, look, here's what you can do. I'll give you guidance, write letters to Senator Harkin and Senator Hatch. They are advocates for the dietary supplement space. They wholeheartedly believe in the benefits and they're allies. So I wrote letters to them and asked them to look into this. Why is the FDA after 3 years? They're stated, there's a whole backstory. I'm wanting to implement the competition process to begin with. So at any rate, so in writing letters to Harkin and Hatch, Senator Harkin and Hatch, it became clear to me, and this became, there's a lot of articles of their advocacy of the dietary supplement space and nutrition and things like that. And Deshay, and as my father was involved in, and Jonathan Emord was involved in getting through. And so both of them have retired from the Senate now. Both of them have, one of them was passed on. And so they're not there anymore. So who's the advocate in politics today in Congress or Senate or the White House for dietary supplements? There's more advocates for the cannabis space in politics. Yeah. So, we need somebody, and I can't think of anybody better than Jonathan Emord to be in there fighting for us nationwide. Now you say, well, that's great, Steve. He's running for Virginia Senate. What can I do? How can I help? Just supporting him is hugely important. Yeah. Those senators, by the way, one was from Utah, Senator Hatch, and Harkin was from Illinois. So it didn't matter to me, it mattered to any of us, what state they were from or represented, because they went to Congress and the Senate and argued on behalf of and lobbied on behalf of the dietary supplement space and freedom, what we call health freedom. So Jonathan is the best person I can even think of, even more so than Harkin and Hatch to do that. Okay, so that was more than a minute. I'm sorry.
Skip a few. There's Dad getting school awards.
Receiving awards from And this is Dr. Gerhard Crowder, who was on our scientific advisory board since the beginning, and he was good friends with Linus Pauling. So those of you that know, Linus Pauling was the only person to receive 2 Nobel Prizes by himself for his research on vitamin C.
Did anyone in here get to meet Dr. Strauser? Because he came to all of our events for a number of years. No, he was a great guy. He really was.
Dr. Krauser,
Yeah, he was actually a lot of fun.
he's
If you got to
the
know him.
most published individual on selenium. He became a mentor of my father's because my father, when they fired my father, Yerkes, for his discovery and going public with it, Dr. Strauser reached out to him. He was head of chemistry and biochemistry at UCSD, which is how we wound up in California. Dr. Strauser reached out to him and said, I want to know what, this is where the original research comes in. I want to know not what you read, but what you found. And my father said, I don't have any money, I don't have a job, I have 4 kids, I'm a single father, lost my wife. Said, the person will take care of getting you here. I have a room full of professors that want to hear from you. And my father flew out there, lectured to all the professors at UCSD. Dr. Strauser became a lifelong friend of my father's. He was the head of chemistry, biochemistry, and professor emeritus at UCSD. And so he was the award presenter and was on the board for the Klaus Schwartz Award Foundation. And my father's the only entity that has ever received that. Usually goes to like physicists. Right. Pretty incredible. Dr. Strauser also probably my father's very smart, and my father could talk at his level, obviously. Dr. Strauser was probably the smartest person I've ever met. And Michelle and I, so he was originally from Germany. He had a thick German accent. So I'm lost. When we first met Dr. Strauser a few times, the first few times, probably people on the other room because and he was just super quiet and reserved. And this is my experience with academics. So I just saw the movie Oppenheimer, explaining to Michelle. Academics are in their weird little world. They like pontificate to each other. They just talk to each other and vet out ideas. They like to publish papers. And so Dr. Strauser was that. And so once Michelle and I got to know him, hilarious. The guy had the best sense of humor. He's like my sense of humor is just like zingers, and you're like, okay, he's a real guy. And so it's super nice, but very intimidating if you didn't know him. Super smart. And again, the health claim petition process. When we filed our health claim petition for the benefits of selenium, there's a picture. I don't know if I have it in here. I guess.
We are.
I know. This is important. So, when we filed our health claim petition on selenium, one of the things, so my father, we didn't do was file the health claim petition on the benefits of selenium. So,
Sorry, babe.
So we filed our health claim petition because one of the things that if you have any hope of getting a health claim petition approved through the FDA, the science you submit has to be of what's called significant scientific agreement. That means pretty much everybody has to be in agreement. You try to get a room full of scientists to agree on anything, it's really difficult. So cutting edge stuff is out the window, forget it. So we filed our health claim petition on the benefits of selenium and the risk reduction of cancer, because there's a ton of research, a lot done by Dr. Strauser on the benefits in that area. And that's why we went that direction. We wanted to educate people on the benefits of selenium, knowing it would have these periphery benefits. So at any rate, when we filed our health claim petition with the FDA on the benefits of selenium, we wound up sending Dr. Strauser and Jonathan Ebor to lecture the scientists at the FDA because they said, can you send somebody to explain this to us? On the picture of Jonathan and Dr. Strauser and some of Jonathan's associates standing in front of the FDA.
Yes, or standing for Washington, the White House as well, which is some of this thing.
I think that slide is in here.
Just
So
wanted to do it.
but anyway, so, and obviously my father wound up speaking at the United Nations on, his findings and things.
Good, let's keep going, here we go.
Okay. One of the things my father, I love quotes because it sort of gives a punchline and a soundbite. One of my father's punchline sound bites is that, he wants to create an army of people and pay them an insane amount of money to spread this information. And he said that quote, it was quoted in a magazine article about his stuff before this company existed. So talk about manifesting something, right? So that was more than 27 years ago. Longevity's worldwide sales to date are about $1.75 billion, not per year, but total. It's 27-year life story. And just, a thumbnail is about half of that being paid out to people to help educate people. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Seen a lot of those. One of the things, so I love football, and Jonathan, who I told you about, went to the court thing with us. He is 6'1", I would say. And I wish I had his build when I was growing up in high school. I was the smallest kid. I played football, I wrestled, I ran track in Oregon. Mikey was not even built yet, and so becoming built. And but my father coached me for 2 or 3 years in football.
Yes,
I was
Dr. Wallach,
protection programs. Yes. The first business that I personally was involved in as owner was Ocean Aquariums. It's where I met
You're so cute.
Richard Brennan, Dr. Dirt, who's with us today.
Yeah. I know, right? Richard here looks seriously, so cute. But,
Yeah, in 1984.
oh, it's a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna do through these next
Yeah.
seven slides, so we need to be married and we get a distributorship, that's when you get there.
So I grew up with my father as a teenager because the whole concept of direct sales for him, he never heard of the term. He was teaching nutrition at the Naturopathic College in Portland, Oregon, which is what brought us to Portland, Oregon, because when he lost a job at Yerkes and turned back to people, he wound up getting his third higher education degree at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon. But he also was able to teach nutrition because of his background and experience. So he not only got his third degree while teaching, and so he had us kids at that point, single father. So he taught nutrition. He was going to school. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve, and he had 3 medical clinics in the Portland and coastal areas. We lived in the coast 90 miles. We drove it both ways each day. So did all of that stuff. And somebody said, "You're in network marketing?" He's like, "Nope, I don't know what it is." And so he fell in love with the concept. If you've heard him talk or lecture, a lot of you have heard him talk about getting excited about the deregulation of the phone cards or the phone system.
Yeah.
And so the billing. And so he got excited about actually introducing then truckers to the phone cards. Remember the phone cards? So you dial in a number and save on your phone bill. My father was super excited about that because he fell in love with the idea, the concept of leveraging information and the process. And so he did that as well during that time. And so that's where the sort of epiphany for him was like, what if I could get this nutritional information to the masses? Because he had tried for decades at that point to get research grants and funding for research. And it was, nutrition was not of interest. It was back then pharmaceuticals and genetics. Nutrition, not interesting. Today, epigenetics is the hottest field of research there is, because I think people have come to the researchers have come to the conclusion that is where it's at. That's where the answers are.
So.
There is no drug that's going to create longevity. And that's well, I believe. Okay, this is 2006. And so we had started the company under the name American Longevity, and we wound up expanding into Canada. And people in Canada are like, we love the information, we love the products. Not really thrilled about the name.
The coolest event ever. No.
In 2006. So well, sorry, we. It's interactive. That's this one. So we wanted expanding to Canada with, and we came up with Canadian longevity, and then we came up with Australian longevity, and New Zealand longevity, New Zealand longevity, and because that's my father. And so at the time was very well known for wearing a cowboy hat and a red, white, and blue shirt. And so so every country we would open up in, you'd have to create a new company in that country, because that's how it works. And so it became just a legal fight at every turn around these country names. And so we said, okay, why don't we come up with a new name that really describes the company as it now, we weren't even thinking international expansion when we started the company in 1997. Just, you were like so busy, we didn't even get on the website. Right. Too much Amazon stuff, used books was sort of like what we knew about the web, World Wide Web. So anyway, we wound up sort of talking to a lot of distributors, like, wow, if we were to change the name, what do you think it should be? And so we're taking polls, and so we had partnered with a friend of ours, who's a friend today, Craig Keelan, who created the business plan and the name Longevity. And by the way, his business plan is like 400 pages. So Wharton Business School grad. And so his whole business plan was basically my father's life. It was all about the long-lived cultures from minerals. And so that was what Longevity was all about. His longevity, his creation. And so we wound up partnering and bringing Longevity into then American Longevity. And so we're like, nobody could agree on a new name. And so ultimately, collectively, we kind of came to the conclusion at one point, we have the perfect name. Open the trademark. Remember the trademark fight with Richard Branson over the word bourbon? We'd already been through that. And so we're like, that's it. And so this is me standing on stage announcing the name Longevity in 2006.
Invented in red, white, and blue. Best part of that. The first time I mentioned was on red, white, and blue.
So how many people have been to a Longevity convention? Right?
Right.
So the whole convention was set up in red, white, and blue.
Everywhere. I into a dark room. Yeah. Okay.
So the whole room was dark, and all the banners had covers on them. So you guys have probably heard we've been considering changing the name. Now I'm standing on stage by myself. I get stage right by the way. And so I don't know how this is going to go.
Right.
Like, this is either going to be good or so you guys have heard, and this, that, and the other. Anyway, so got to a point I'm like, okay. And we looked up, and so the new name is Longevity. And the whole time it was enthusiastic. It was
Jumped up on the table. Vegas.
It was Las Vegas.
It was like the whole second half of the convention was purple and Longevity. We have a whole new logo.
And here's the crazy thing is.
But like Steve said, it was very scary because everyone, so pro Dr. Wallach, pro America, pro red, white, and blue is famous tie, all of that. We really had no idea. There have been no polls. It's funny. Yeah.
So, it was just a great event, as events tend to be. But Martin Luther King III showed up. We didn't know he was coming. He just serendipitously showed up to thank my father for what he had been doing and what he had done for his family. And Jonathan Emord was there. That was that picture of them, the three gentlemen up on stage. Chili from TLC was there.
Was that
Matt was there? Oh, yeah, Mike Glenn was there. It was great event.
Right.
Hey, so obviously longevity and my father's mission for nutrition has spread worldwide at this point. I tell him to this day, he has won the war of the nutrition concept, because you've got Dr. Oz on national television, basically copying his information with his show. It was interesting because Michelle, a group of women to a show, and Dr. Oz was speaking. This is 10 years ago, maybe at least. And the first time she had seen him speak in person, like, he's saying all these things, 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. And so, and anyway, they were even more rudimentary than that in the very beginning. So quality is definitely king. And so one of the things, and Jill, I think you brought up the pandemic recently, and these are some of the challenges that Paul was and Cheryl were alluding to a while ago. Michelle and I are the ones that get to deal with all of that sort of stuff. Doesn't matter what's going on, whether it's wildfires and we're being evacuated from home office in Southern California, or it's pandemic stuff, or whatever worldwide shortages of this ingredient or that ingredient. My father, when people say what is different about longevity products, they say my father's philosophy and knowledge and research go into everything we do. Absolutely every product we produce. Being around my father for a few years now, I've grown up with him, and so Michelle and I oversee all of that. We are the curators of that, and we take that very, very seriously, that we won't put our name behind, whether it be longevity or Wallach, behind anything that we can't stand behind product-wise. And so if you come to longevity, if you tour the whole office, our offices are side by side upstairs, and the purchasing department that manages and interacts at every step with every vendor we have, of every product we have, is right there. And so the reason they were for a little while initially downstairs, because in the beginning we didn't have a purchasing department. We had, like me, and then we had one person doing kind of the purchasing, placing purchase orders with vendors and things. Now we have a whole team, but Michelle and I manage that team. We interact with every one of those people, because the information and communication is, we'll send emails and text messages and have phone calls, but it is verbal, constant. And so quality is absolutely king.
There you are.
Linda and Cheryl.
Dr. Conway.
Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Conway's front counsel. No, here we go.
No, but I think one of the points of this is the equality of network marketing, meaning anybody can be. Anybody can be a network marketing.
Yes,
there is no barriers.
Right. No barriers.
Right. He's going to point to everybody in the picture.
So one of the things that since the pandemic, and this is something that it's interesting, because we talk about this amongst ourselves a lot these days, is, and I think Paul was talking about this yesterday, people just don't necessarily want to work. 85% of the people say they either don't want a job, and the other 15% just don't have one, or whatever that statistic was that they were talking about yesterday. Time freedom is one of the things I have seen in network marketing and direct sales since the beginning. So Michelle and I became successful distributors before longevity existed, and that was what she was talking about, that when we got married, we received a distributorship from my father as part of our wedding gift. People say, well, how big was the downline? There wasn't a downline, it was an application. But growing up in that, that was time freedom. I had a job, I had gone to college, I had, been in management, I owned a small business, the aquarium store. And this is time freedom where you get to work with who you want to work with, when you want to work with them. Back then we had bag phones and we were big stuff when we had the flip phone. And so, but we, hung out with Richard Renton and Roxanne Renton. We got a boat, they got a boat. That was work. That was network marketing because you were on the phone talking to people in your downline at the time. And, that sort of stuff, that is networking. Today, you have a back office, you can manage from a smartphone, you can manage your business from a computer, a laptop, cell phone, all of those things that didn't exist back then. Today, you have tools for the tools. And so it is very doable. I remember reading an article about the gig economy about 6 years ago, saying in 2 years, 1 in 2 people will be involved in the gig economy. It seemed impossible that it could happen that quickly. And yet the pandemic definitely shoved everybody that direction. And so, you can manage this type of business, build this type of business, be involved in this type of business anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're in Italy. If you have connectivity, you can manage your business.
Best makeup ever. I'm just zipping through the slide. Just tell the story. But I mean, I think his point is he's still continuing on is that longevity offers something for everyone.
Absolutely. So this is interesting. How many people have tried the Blooming Minerals?
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic for your plants.
Yeah.
We use it great for food plants or ornamental plants. But this product had the trademark Virgin Earth because it is Virgin Earth. And this is what led to the lawsuit with Richard Branson, who I can't stand to this day. He's a hypocrite. So, I would tell him to his face and almost have. So, you saw some of those early products today. I think pinnacle of our tableted and capsule products are the Pro line. Sure, but we have amazing products. What I've got right here is BTT. This is 1.0 with our mineral sticks. So it's got the collagen, the plant-derived minerals, and the 90 essential nutrients other than the EFAs. And so that is, Dr. Wallach's 1-2 punch. Richard Renton, by the way, came up with that great diagram, for example, of the sunflower, where the center of the sunflower are the 90 essential nutrients. Super easy to understand that every petal is a beneficial either nutrient or product. And so we have the 90 essential nutrients. Everybody needs the 90 essential nutrients, but then the beneficial products are mix and match. So we work with Mary Lou Henner. She endorses Synaptic. How many people know who Mary Lou Henner is? A little bit about her. So she is fantastic. I grew up with Taxi, the television show Taxi. She was one of the stars of Taxi. So when I got to meet her, I get starstruck by very few people. Oprah and Mary Lou Henner are definitely among that group. But what I didn't know about Mary Lou Henner until I actually got the opportunity to meet her and then work with her, she's one of 12 documented people that have total recall, the ability to remember absolutely any day, as long as she's been alive, what she was doing in national news of the day. And Michelle and I have both, especially when we first met her, tested that. We're like, really, come on. To what extent? You're like, okay, well, my son was born on this day, this year. She's like, okay, it was, this particular day of the week. I don't even know. I think it was a Saturday, but Jonathan. And so I think, but I couldn't even tell you based on the date. But she, she's like, she tells you what day of the week it is, what day of the year it is, or whatever.
She can give you all
the national news, what she was wearing that day, what she wore, what her business meetings were, what she was doing for the day, what she ate for the day, what car she drove for the day. It's absolutely amazing. So my point is, for her to endorse our brain support products Synaptic, she had to go to the nth degree before she would even ingest it, because she definitely doesn't want to mess that up, right? So she's super
Oh,
careful.
she's super psychotic about her diet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and she is, she's not putting a single thing.
Super, super nice, super down to earth.
Yeah.
Michelle and I have met many celebrities, and
These three are my
unfortunately,
favorite.
most of them
Yes.
are not very nice people.
Yeah.
You know, they're sort of what you'd expect, you know, Spanish or whatever.
But Drew is so nice.
Absolutely.
Theo is so nice.
Yes. People are down to earth, you know, kind with their time, super, super polite, professional, just genuine, and there are kind of people for sure.
Theo called us at home a couple of weekends ago, just such a great guy, such a good father.
You know, it's amazing because
Yeah.
when he started, so Rebound, you guys may not know this story, Rebound FX was actually created for Theo.
Yeah.
So when Theo started using Rebound FX, it had no name. And so Theo's story is he had played in the NBA for about 10 years plus college. He was a college basketball star. He's almost 7 feet tall, so running up and down the wood floor, I mean, it takes a toll on your body. And so my father worked a lot with the Atlanta Hawks basketball team, and Lenny Wilkins was the coach at the time, and Martin Luther King III had made the introduction, or Phil Oliver, who knew Martin well, somebody did. And so Mike Glenn, who works with us today, and Theo works with us today. Mike still is the voice of the Atlanta Hawks to this day. He's still the announcer. And so anyway, so Theo was at a point where he needed either knee surgery to continue. 10 years in the NBA is a pretty long career for a big fella. I mean, he would be the shot blocker that would guard against Shaquille O'Neal, who's a good friend of Shaquille to this day. Anyway, so it takes a toll on your body. And so I think it was Lenny Wilkins, the head coach of the Hawks, said to Theo, "Oh, crazy Dr. Wallach, maybe. You know, you don't really want surgery unless you have to, because that's probably the end of your career." So he got a hold of my father. That was the introduction of Theo to my father. My father said, "Here's what you need to take." You guys have all heard him say, "Here's what you need to take."
Yeah.
And so only with Theo, who's 300 pounds because he's 7 feet tall, it's 3 times as much. And so several months later, he was back to playing. He was on the All-Star team the next year. He was then traded for an additional $50 million contract to the Portland Trail Blazers, where Michelle and I met and got married. It was in Portland, Oregon, where my aquarium store was, Portland, Oregon. And so they brought Theo in because he's such a good guy. The Portland Trail Blazers had the name reputation called, they were known as the Jail Blazers at the time because they were all getting into trouble. And so they brought Theo in, 1, because he was an excellent player, but 2, because super family guy. And so brought like some stability and mentorship to the team. And then he wound up retiring, playing for the LA Lakers, 16 years in the NBA, one of the longest careers to date. Loves our products, obviously. So
We're gonna actually pretty much skip to the end.
Okay.
There's a whole section on our website. It's lovely. Go visit it.
so did I stay within the 30 minutes?
No. Wasn't 2 hours left.
My father's had a 70-year career. There's a lot to talk about.
There is.
Amen.
There is.
Love it. This is good. This is good.
No, and you're super excited. I'm super excited about fruit and veggies.
I'm super excited about fruit and veggies. So, you know, when we created Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Beyond comes from a product line that we had called Beyond Juice at the time, fruit and vegetable juice capsules. So we had combined them, the fruit and vegetable powders, with our then most popular multivitamin mineral product called Tangy Tangerine. That's where Beyond Tangy Tangerine comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So recently we brought back out fruit and vegetable capsules separately because people continued asking for that. So that's that product line.
Super.
Any quick questions? Because I know I'm slightly over time.
I can't believe how many
Speaking
things
of
you
the-
learned
the-
that I did not know.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah, exactly. If you're taking that, you don't need the fruit and veggie tabs, right?
Right. And so so the question was, if you're taking Tangy Tangerine or Beyond Tangy Tangerine, I think, do you still need the fruit and vegetable capsules and additional powders? There's nothing wrong with getting more, but the short answer is no. And when we came back out with that was a consideration. We're like, well, we've got 5,700 milligrams of fruit and vegetable powder is the best on the planet in Beyond Tangy Tangerine powders. And so, but convenience or people, sometimes when people want to get started on products, like, well, what do you have that I can take? You know, I'm looking for something vegan, or I'm allergic to this, that, or the other.
There's some plenty of pill people,
And so-
like they don't wanna take the powder
It's a great-
anyway.
you know, lead in, I think. And so, but it absolutely is great for kids. It's great for, you know, taking additional products, definitely phytonutrients. You know, we've worked with Jordan Rubin, who credits my father with saving his life. And one of the things that he talks a lot about is not only the 90 essential nutrients, but there are hundreds of beneficial, he believes even essential, phytonutrients. Those phytonutrients tend to come from fruits and vegetables. So that's why the color of the rainbow.
So the fruit and veggie caps, which I've never taken, but I have two questions. So they can take that instead of the Beyond Tangy Tangerine? Is that
Just
what-
for the fruit and vegetable powder. So no, it's not a replacement.
Okay,
So her question was, if you take the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, do you still need the fruit and vegetable powder?
Okay.
The answer is no.
so, and my second question is, no one's ever OD'd on nutrition, right? Can't we just take all this stuff and it's okay?
Well, kind of.
So one of the things that,
Because I take a lot of stuff.
yeah, you
You should take one ingredient and a mass amount of
It
it,
would
right?
be
Isn't
very-
that the scary part?
Right.
it would be very difficult to OD on anything nutritional. And one of the things that, I mean, your body will tell you if you've taken too much of something, because you're gonna get upset stomach or digestive issues. But one of the things that, for years and years and years, I actually met with Dr. Schrauzer and Dr. Wallach, who was like Dr. Schrauzer's cohort. And I met with them on a weekly basis. We would talk products, we talked what people asked about, they would write reports. And this was for 15 years, I probably met with each of them each week on a consistent basis, and we had these conversations. One of the things that I think it was actually Jonathan Emord said, Steve, when you're answering questions that distributors might have or customers might have about products, what I would recommend you get is a series of books called the DRI books published by the Institutes of Medicine. And he said, remember, I talked about 15 minutes ago, the significant scientific agreement, remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
So the DRI books from the Institutes of Medicine is what the government accepts. So the DRI books, when you're quoting about particular information, not the disease part and supplements, because that's in there too, but which is good. Great if you want to read ad nauseum the stuff from a knowledge standpoint, just don't quote from it on the disease parts. So anyway, so that book, or series of books, to your question of can you OD on things, there's things called the upper tolerable levels and things like that. No observed adverse effect levels, NOLs, and things like that. So every nutrient that, and even chemicals that they have researched are in those books. And so there's this range, right? And so if you're consuming selenium at too high of a level, it can be harmful. It's one of those unique nutrients. Oxygen at too high of a level can be harmful.
Right.
Water at too high of a level can be harmful. And
So
so
we even control the number of polymers that's given to our kids
Yeah.
because they think nothing of 10.
Right.
In one water bottle.
the reality is that, I mean, you would have to like take an extreme
Right.
amount of something for a long period of time, and it would become obvious that, you know.
Right.
En la actualidad, escuché que longevity ayuda a prevenir el autismo, no, el síndrome Down en los niños, pero quiero saber si eso puede ayudar también, porque tengo muchas amigas que tienen hijos con autismo.
So what would I recommend for babies?
She would like to know if longevity can help like for children that have the
Down syndrome.
syndrome.
So okay. Tricky question, right? So the way you phrased it though, you said, can it help? Yes, it is not a treatment. Okay, we don't have a treatment for Down syndrome, but children with Down syndrome need nutrition.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the creator of polymers, Dr. Corey Gold, his and Adrian Gold. So if you can get a hold of Adrian, she and her late husband, Dr. Corey Gold, worked with autistic and Down syndrome children extensively to help them with nutrition. And so she is a great resource for that, Adrian Gold. My father would be too, others, Ben Fuchs, pharmacist Ben. But the answer is there's a nutritional program that can help them. It's not that our products are designed for that, but it's part of a nutritional program that can help. And you can see improvement in how the behaviors of children, and not just children with Down syndrome or
Many behavioral
but,
issues,
yeah. So hopefully that helps.
Futuristically, what's in store for longevity?
Oh, we missed those
Futuristically,
slides.
I mean, research.
I love what's happening with AI at the moment.
Yeah.
And so,
that's
one of the things we brought up Steve Jobs kind of in the beginning. So I've studied Steve Jobs pretty extensively. And now I really, really like following Elon Musk and somebody, his name is Peter Diamandis, who's a friend of Elon Musk. I met Peter, I've not met Elon yet, but Peter Diamandis is the founder of the X Prize, which was introduced and launched in St. Louis, Missouri, under the Arch, St. Louis, Missouri. It was all about aviation and space and travel, and so it was the X Prize. Now it's expanded dramatically, but he's an MD that's super. It's kind of interesting. If you don't follow Peter Diamandis, either on Twitter or Instagram, I recommend him. He quotes my father's stuff. And he's an MD, and he's also an engineer. Peter Diamandis, it's Demandis, I think, Diamandis. But he was the founder and creator of the X Prize. So super.
If you just simply Google X Prize, everything about Peter will come up.
But he also works closely with Elon Musk and a fellow by the name of Ray Kurzweil, who are currently recognized as the most futuristic future thinkers there are. So Peter, Michelle and I were in a room smaller than this, number-wise of people, of executives of nutritional and dietary and network marketing companies, and Peter was lecturing to us about what would come. And so we had Gary Vaynerchuk, Peter Diamandis, and some others that you would know. And so he was talking specifically about things that we see in everyday life today about 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Things like Uber didn't exist. He said it's coming.
The driverless taxi in Phoenix.
Driverless cars. But he took it to another extreme. So this is kind of interesting. How many people have used Uber? Probably most of us, right? And so this morning, are you guys seeing the driverless cars out?
No, that's specific to Phoenix, Steve. That's the test market.
So in Phoenix, they're all over the place now.
So you get into a car that has no driver at all. None. And it will, and we see them all over.
8 or 9 years ago.
Not at all. The car drives you to the airport, sorry.
So what's even crazier is he said, not only is that coming, but think about this. Once that happens, you won't need a car.
Ever again.
He said, my children, Peter, my children won't drive their own cars. They will say, oh, I'm going out Friday night, I need a sports car. You'll order a sports car, it'll show up at your door, there won't be a driver there. You won't need to park it. You won't need to go find your car. Now take one step further. All the shopping malls don't need parking lots. All that land's coming back and will be developed.
Wow.
So he and Elon Musk are they are super good friends. There's a great picture of the two of them.
If I didn't see it happening in Phoenix, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah,
And
it's here.
It doesn't seem scary. It
So the
seems
whole
fine.
AI thing, Peter and Elon have been talking about for years. This year, it has exploded like it's revolutionary. It's been there since the 1950s and has been developing. And so Peter and Elon Musk have they have opposing views on AI. Elon says it's gonna potentially be like Terminator, Skynet, bad for humans.
Yeah.
Peter says it's the solution to abundance for all humans. So pretty diametrically.
Strangely enough, because we had a conversation earlier, the kids don't want to drive.
No. It's all happening.
Especially
I know we're way over time. One more quick question.
No, he's featured in the Tony Robbins book, Life Force. He talks a lot about those things.
Yeah, Peter and Tony and even Elon Musk and Tony are super good friends. I mean, this is I'm not in that circle, but I like to watch them because they are. So
It's like the Jetsons are coming alive, right?
yeah, well, it's crazy because I love Star Trek, the original.
Yeah.
And if you go back to Star Trek, the original series, which is only like 19 episodes in 1966, things that they were like, it was science fiction have come to be. So pretty interesting. Okay, sorry, Paul, I know I'm way over time. Rebecca?
You wanna say hello to your father? She's on.
Hi, Dad!
All right, I'm way over time, so I apologize.
No, you did a great job. You did a great job.
It's like your dad's about to call you and prep you all.
I'll take correction from him.
I'm great with Steve.